Mike, it's kind of a holy grail moment for you being here. You've wondered about this building for a long time, haven't you?
We've done a lot of work over the last 20 years, and I've always been outside, kind of looking in the windows, but this is a big, exciting thing for me to finally get a chance to get inside. He's around town. I forget his name.
Yeah, there's...
he had it for a while.
I forget what the name is.
Hard hats.
It all, so.
Why was this built, and what is its history?
Well, Crosley had a series of smaller plants, and as the company got bigger and bigger, he needed more and more space. And one was down on Alford Street, one was off of Coleraine. But in the late 1920s, by 1925, he was the world's largest manufacturer of radios. And then he started to manufacture shelf-door refrigerators. He needed a bigger place.
Yeah.
So they designed this building, an 8-story building. The idea was the first 7 floors would be manufacturing, and then the radio station would be on the 8th floor. But in 1928, he also acquired WSAI. So now he had 2 radio stations, and the amount of space needed, he actually took the 7th and 8th floor for radio, and then the first 6 floors were for manufacturing. And it just followed a pattern. He always seemed to have his radio station studios with the factories. They started building this in late 28, early 29. It was finished by 1930. Of course, the stock market crashed, but Crosley always managed to cover his bases. So there were a lot of radio manufacturers in Cincinnati. There was Precision, there was Cleartone. A lot of them went out of business during the Depression because radio sales went down. But Crosley also had some chips over on the radio production side, and so that was very successful. And so he always had his fingers in something that made money.
Yeah.
And that's what kept it going.
And helped in World War II as well. Talk about that they...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Crosley manufactured 3 key things for the government during World War II. He made, obviously, communication equipment, portable transmitters, but he also made these bomb sights for bombers. But the big thing was the proximity fuse, which was a small, conical-shaped fuse that went on the end of ground-to-air missiles or bombs that would explode in proximity of enemy aircraft. It was so top secret that they actually, supposedly, purported to have a pasteurizing machine here for French Bauer Dairy, and so they would back up all these dairy trucks every morning and haul off all these cartons of milk, but it wasn't milk. There were proximity fuses in these little cartons, and these were so top secret. I mean, if the enemy would have gotten them, it could have changed. It did change the war for the Allies. So.
And the radio station was here for how long?
In 1942, because of the proximity fuse project, they felt really nervous about having people in and out. So they purchased the old Elks Club at 9th and Elm Streets downtown and turned it into Crosley Square. And so the radio station moved down there in late 1942.
So roughly what years was everything
So
happening?
from 30 to 42, things were happening here. And that was the 500,000 watt era. So you had people like Fats Waller here. You had people like the Mills Brothers, the Ink Spots, Eddie Albert, Frank Lovejoy. They all worked here at one time or another in this very building.
And the whole, when you say the Nation Station, what was the reason for calling it the Nation Station?
In 1928, Powell purchased WSAI, and that was a 5,000 watt station. WLW was allowed to go to 50,000 watt in 1928. And back then, because there were no power lines like there are today, 50,000 watts could cover most of the U.S.
Okay.
So that's when they started to call it the Nation Station, and WSAI was called Cincinnati's own station. When they got 500,000 watts, they were already the Nation Station. So, but it was. You think about 500,000 watts. Of course, the transmitter is still where it is up in Mason, Ohio, but the studios were down here.
Notable thing on this floor is we have a rounded edge, and the reason for that is because in a normal rail yard, you would have the train actually curve on the tracks and a tower to see when everything's loaded, how everything's getting loaded. Is it progressing as you would expect? You don't have that capability in a building like this in a small urban setting. So they actually curved the building around the tracks so that you could look all the way down it to make sure all the loading was processing or progressing as expected. It should turn into some nice window units. We've talked about some art space as well.
And Matt, did you see this? Now this is the atrium. So it was open to the sky, and apparently some of the engineers used to play with these little remote airplanes and kind of fly them around in here. But that's, I mean, that's.
There's an elevator there. There's an elevator, I believe, on the other side here, and there's another elevator up front. This may not work out today. It's a little bit darker than yesterday. But if you guys want to walk through it, more than welcome to. Otherwise, we can circle up back upstairs.
What do you suppose we had in here back in the day, Mike?
I don't know. It would have been manufacturing. Like I said, the radio, they moved the TVs or the refrigerators up to Richmond after the flood, but all the other things I think were still.
Hard to find a window that's not broken in this place.
So the sign museum's right over on the other side of that. This one of the carpet guy signs.
More of just outdoor space. Around the corner to the right, there's the top of what we call the boardroom over by the tower on the far corner. There was access out here. You can see all these different walkways that were connected at some point and been moved over time. The ladders are they're safe. I've gone all the way up, but
You know, it's okay.
I like to shot a picture up there.
Yeah.
the interesting tidbit that we've seen from some old photos is the current sign scaffolding that's up along Arlington or Colane, I think, is not where it was originally placed. We used to have the Crosley one on the upper, which would have been this deck, and it's actually on the lower section, which is floor 7, I believe. There's studios up here at some point. No, not studios, but offices. So this probably would have been the air conditioning that we're talking about here, or heat. But big ventilation ducts, things like that.
This is the HVAC area?
That would be what I imagine.
You know what? No, this is where the subcarrier transmitter sent it up to Mason from here, because there was a tower at one point. So you can see how they got it up. There was a tower here,
Okay.
and they would beam that up to Mason and then broadcast from Mason. High frequency control, low frequency control. Line phono radio, so it's like some sort of an amplifier.
Hey, that's a discovery here today.
Yeah.
Way to go, Mike. What are we looking at here, Mike?
So this is Powel Crosley's office, and he had an office at his home in College Hill called Pinecroft that was the exact same woodwork, same windows, the colored glass. That was all, the architect was Dwight James Baum, and so he had hired him to both build and design his home, but also design his office. And so there are photos of him. You can't really tell if he's here or there, but most likely, I know we have some pictures of him in his office here. They had a fireplace on one side.
There it is right there.
He loved the what was called, well, I don't know, the official Tudor revival architecture. So he loved this style of paneling, and you can see the wood carvings above the doorways, exactly the same as what he had up at his home up in Pinecroft.